So this project is really thinking about the different ways that you can present ideas about a given space. So we have these industrial looking boxes which seem like a kind of infrastructure which read orally a poem to you. And so the whole time you hear this poem, which is about the creek, you can hear the water behind you. And so the sensory part of it is blending human language with the sound of the natural water, which is the subject of most of these poems. Then you have these signs which kind of use a traditional way of interacting with language, but we try to make it novel by, rather than explaining what's here, giving a kind of evocative gesture that thinks about the more sensuous qualities of the space. And then finally we have these pavers which we've made, which mark the place in a way that references the history of the geology very particularly, but also references the history of the way that marking has been done in this country by using traditional geodetic survey markers.
It all came together really well.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering that the three of us, we don't live in the same cities. Jared lives in Reno, I live in Los Angeles, Matt lives in San Diego.
What's his problem?
Designer, fabricator, finish fetishist,
yeah.
Material technologist.
Yeah.
He's the member who makes all of our ideas real. We communicate on the internet.
The way everyone communicates today.
So like when Matt was helping us problem solve during installation today and yesterday, text, go find some reception, wait for a text back, take a picture, send it, call.
Try to find enough bars to get in touch.
Yeah. I mean, something that we're all interested in is infrastructure and infrastructural signage, and that's part of the reason why we met at 29 Palms Marine Base.
Well, one of the things that happened was we saw this sign. It said mountain on this picture of the mountain you were looking at, and that double flop of the representation was completely absurd to me. And that was another thing that I knew would tie Matt and Gabie and I together, was a sort of subversive notion about how landscape operates and what you can do to kind of play with how people are supposed to interact with the landscape. And what's sort of curious about it is, like, when you start looking at signage in the landscape, you realize, like, the world is, especially the US, is full of language that's trying to control your experience of a place. And we were completely interested in whether it was possible to have language and objects that could kind of complicate your relationship to the place.
Yeah, we're hoping to create a kind of network of objects through the space that I think will be an interesting sort of challenge for us to figure out how they can, you know, how wide this network can be before it loses its center, I guess.
And each of the sites, especially the paver sites, really have kind of an absolute relationship to the space where they're located.
Here's an example of one. This represents the site down by the Newtown ditch, and it's literally from a photograph that Jared took of the ground of that site that I then translated through digital tools to redraw the imagery in that photograph, and then Matt milled that into this piece of engravement panel. And so it becomes an image of the site of which you're looking at. The other elements along the trail that we installed involve very contemporary materials that are used in parks. So we have all of the standard armature that you would see in park signage. But one thing that we did differently was to have a signifying color through the space. And so Matt and I had looked at all the different color selections, and there was a very nice ribbon pink color that spoke to both of us in such a way as that it's a complementary color. It's both warm and cool. It also differentiates itself from nature. So it's not trying to be natural. It's definitely a human mark in the space, but it reflects upon the other colors in the landscape in a very positive way. So it accentuates all the greens and browns and grays and the blue of the sky and the different sunlight cast that's spread throughout the area as the sun passes overhead.
For us, it's really important to kind of always be unmasking the human impact of a place. You know, like, it's really amazing to look at images of this place from 100 years ago, because these soils are completely denuded. And then people will say, "Oh, well, we're going on a nature walk." Well, this isn't nature. This is second growth.
This is the built environment.
This
right
is the
here.
built environment. It's just kind of been repurposed for recreation. The steep learning curve. Yeah, I haven't seen the first talking box installed yet, so this is my first experience with it, so we'll see what it sounds like to walk up on a strange little piece of infrastructure that speaks with my voice. There are 3 different poems in each of the boxes for a total of 9 poems given to us by 7 different poets. It says, press to hear poems from the creek.
What time of year is it? And how do I smell today? Dusty smell or wet? In my changes, I like to think of your nose where my smells go. You may find I'm touching the inside of your head, but be kind. I have lived and smelled this way for a long time, and after you, I will keep on my smelly way. But where are you going on this bright hot or warm dappled, on this rain and or snow-filled day?
Well, that's what it sounds like. Seems to work.
Deer Creek.
How's that for art?
Wow!